Good morning, everybody. My name is John Marie Mercado, UPIE Batch 1980, and the current board member of the UP Industrial Engineering Alumni Association. I will be your host and moderator today. Welcome to the first of our IEmagineering webinars, a series of seminars featuring distinguished UPIE alumni talking about various topics that are relevant in today's times. This event also kicks off the Golden Jubilee celebration of the UP Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research, as well as commemorating 110 years of the UP College of Engineering. This event was made possible by the UP Industrial Engineering Alumni Association in collaboration with the UP Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research, the UP College of Engineering, and the UP Engineering Research and Development Foundation Incorporated, or ERDFI. During the course of this webinar, kindly turn off your videos and mute your microphones. We encourage you to post all the questions in the question and answer segment in the chat box. Also, we will be asking some survey questions during the course of the talk. At that time, a window will pop up on your screen with the poll question. Please answer this by clicking on the option you choose. Finally, we will be posting a link for an evaluation form at the end of this webinar. Kindly help us by providing us your valuable feedback. Those who wish to get a certificate of attendance must accomplish this form to get their digital certificates. To start our webinar, please welcome the President of the UPIEAA, Mr. Ricky Peña, to give the welcome remarks, as well as introduce our keynote speaker. Ricky?
Thank you, Jo Marie. Good morning to our dear listeners, and welcome to the first IEmagineering webinar, brought to you by the UP Industrial Engineering Alumni Association. Today's topic cannot be more timely, as we all struggle to see how the state of education will unfold under the new reality. But even before the pandemic happened, we know that Philippine education is overripe for a reinvention. As mentioned by the Philippine Daily Inquirer columnist Neni Santa Romana Cruz in her column today, 2 million Filipinos turn 18 years old every year. And out of that number, only a mere 300,000 finish high school, graduate from college, and land a job. Under this backdrop, we know that whatever innovation we can use under these circumstances will in the end benefit a lot more of our youth. I am happy to introduce today's distinguished speaker, who graduated from UP Diliman in 1985 with a BS degree in Industrial Engineering. Elzar Simon is a global thought leader in information technology. He is the author of 2 books on artificial intelligence: AI Hacked, A Practical Guide to the Future with Artificial Intelligence, and AI Hacked 2, Reimagine the Future. Both books are now available in Amazon. His first book is listed in the top 100 AI books of all time by a global independent book curator organization, the Book Authority. Elzar joins a list of top AI writers in the world, including Ray Kurzweil, Max Tegmark, and Martin Ford. Elzar is also a full member of the Authors Guild, the oldest and most prestigious organization for professional writers in America. Elzar has over 30 years of global experience in information technology. He has worked in various industries, including transportation and logistics, healthcare, government, finance, and higher education. He currently works as Senior IT Director for Global Infrastructure in one of the largest and most prestigious universities in the Northeast of the United States. Elzar is also known in the Philippine music industry as Doji Simon, the songwriter behind the hits of Shasha Padilla, Gary Valenciano, Martin Rivera, and many others. He won grand prize in the 1999 Metropop Festival for the song Can't Stop Loving You, interpreted by Lani Misalucha. During his college years in UP, Doji conducted the UPIE Club Choir, where incidentally I sang bass for him. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's all please welcome Mr. Elzar Doji Simon.
Many thanks, Ricky, for that kind introduction. And indeed, Ricky Peña was one of our star bass singers in the IE Club Choir. Allow me to just turn off my video so that we can focus on the slides. Okay. Well, first of all, many thanks to the UP Industrial Engineering Alumni Association for having me today as presenter on the topic Education Reimagined. I hope everyone is well. Globally, we have now over 15 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and over 600,000 deaths. That's a 4% death rate. Anyway, moving on to our topic, we will try to make this as interesting as possible by using the Zoom poll facility to solicit your participation. Up on the board are my two books, which are now available in Amazon, AI Hacked and AI Hacked 2, the most recent release with the subtitle Reimagine the Future. With the kind assistance of Malu, could you please move on to the next slide? Our learning objectives for today are threefold. One is to articulate the challenges posed by this pandemic on our educational system. And I tried my best to contextualize this also in the Philippines setting. I have some examples of what we do in the US, but I made sure that I also contextualize this in the Philippine setting. Second is I'd like to discuss some possible solutions involving three key stakeholders: the government, family, and the educational systems. And then we will do some visioning exercise, right? Starting with the latest trends and segue to emerging technologies. Malu, next slide, please. Well, it is widely known that this novel coronavirus began in Wuhan, China. When the news came out in January and February about Wuhan, a lot of people were reasonably skeptical. I for one, was doubtful. However, I had a sudden, deeper insight as one of my colleagues who actually reported to me has a family in Wuhan. And he gave me a weekly account of what was happening in Wuhan. So I wasn't surprised that on March 11, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus as a pandemic. Still, a lot of people at that point dismissed it as a possible hoax or conspiracy. But then reality started to really sink in when governments declared lockdowns. And then the schools and universities started to talk about sending students back home. You would recall that the lockdown started in mid-March. That's the week of midterms and 6 weeks before the end of the semester in the Philippines. And then the world turned to online facilities, remote instructions, online shopping, Zoom sessions, WebEx, webinars, digital marketing, and so forth and so on. Was a sudden closure. And the educational institutions had to transition, given very, very little time to remote instructions. Next slide, please. So let's look at the various challenges that the educational ecosystem faced during this pandemic period. We will look at challenges with IT infrastructure, issues faced by faculty, of course the students, security in cyberspace, impact to finances at various levels, and health and safety of all of us. But before we move on to our first line item there, which is global and national IT infrastructure, let us have our first poll. Malu, please. Okay, so here's the question. Out of 109 million people living in the Philippines, how many are internet users? Malu, did we create a poll for this, or do we expect them to type in the? Okay, here we go. Right. Thank you very much. So just click on your answer and press or click on submit. Are we ready to present the results of the poll? Hello? Okay, so here we go. 39% of responders think that it's 30 million internet users, right? Out of 109 million people in the Philippines. Another 26% believe it's 50 million people. About a third of the respondents think that it's 70 million internet users in the Philippines. And 3% believe it's 90 million. Thank you very much, Malu. We can now close the poll. Next slide, please. So what's the correct answer? The correct answer is 70 million, 73 million. So some stats based on Statista and speedtest.net that we need to consider. First, as I said, there are about 73 million internet users in the Philippines out of a population of 109 million. That is, with a quick math, 67%. The average download speed is about 16 megabits per second. Upload speed is about 5.9 or 6 megabits per second. Latency is 42 milliseconds. Now, for some of you who are in the telecom industry or in electronics engineering, you certainly understand the difference between bandwidth and latency. Okay, there are 74 million smartphone users in the Philippines. This is a significant piece of statistic because I will talk about possible solutions in the coming slides. And this number of smartphone users is predicted to climb to around 90 million by 2025. Here in the US, we have 95% of the 329 million people who have access to internet. There are about 152,000 Wi-Fi locations across the US, which is about 87.27% internet penetration rate. Okay. Again, based on reliable sources, Statista and speedtest.net. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Hello. Thank you. So how about the faculty? Let's look at the challenges faced by the teachers. A lot of teachers around the world were unprepared, clearly. That includes teachers here in the US. Of course, some universities that have been offering purely online courses did not have to go through such a transition. In fact, you know, from time to time, I deliver lectures on AI, and I'm currently doing a webinar series for a university that offers 100% online courses. Okay. Majority of schools operated with, as we know, curricula designed for in-person classes, what we call traditional way of teaching. Across the globe, the sudden shift to remote instructions demanded prompt training for faculty, both young and not so young teachers. And so, you know, professors and teachers started asking, what is Zoom? What do you mean I have to use Zoom? And what are the features? How do I conduct my classes now? It is not a surprise that in many cases, faculty even lacked IT equipment to provide online classes or even provide digitized materials, i.e. video and audio, to their students. Work from home was also a challenge, considering that they need to look after their children, or at the very least, share internet connectivity with family members. Oh, and by the way, how do you actually teach a class that requires laboratory work, or sports, or music, or art classes? Take, for example, sports. I think we have a class called ballroom dancing in UP when I was still studying. I'm not sure if it's still around. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Malu. Now let's look at the challenges to students. So in the Philippine context, clearly, lack of IT equipment and even Wi-Fi connectivity at home. These were big challenges to students. In fact, I talked to a UP teacher in another college, social work, and he said that he even had a student who went back to his hometown in Quezon, and that the only Wi-Fi available is in the town hall. Now, I'd like you to pause for a moment and think about that. How will that student attend daily classes, right, if they're all conducted via Zoom? Of course, both parents and children are at home 24/7. There are house chores and school assignments to balance. And it's not surprising that students that are challenged with time management face huge difficulties in catching up with school assignments. Finding a space at home was a challenge. You know, a quiet place also became a challenge, not only to students, but also parents who were teleworking. For young families, toddlers joined Zoom meetings. Just this morning, I had my regular 9 a.m. Sprint call with the program team that I'm leading, and it's an ordinary occurrence to have some sound in the background of toddlers, you know, with crying out or some tantrums, right? In the Philippine setting, you can also imagine the challenges that a student living in a densely populated barangay is facing. You know, the space, noise, interruptions, an environment that is not exactly conducive to study. Again, students who are based in rural areas had to deal with lack of Wi-Fi connectivity. And let's not forget, it's not unusual that some Filipino students, well, even here in the US, live with relatives. They live with their grandparents or aunt, etc. Okay, let's move on to our next poll. So we will tackle next cybersecurity. So we have this poll question. Name one global institution that was targeted by hackers during the pandemic. So Malu, could you please pull up the poll? There you go. Oh, that's the first one.
Dodger, I hope it doesn't mean that we've been hacked.
Just in time, for cybersecurity.
No, it's to demonstrate. There you go. Oops, wrong.
Still the first poll. Yeah. Well, you can. Let's see. Let's give Malu maybe a couple more seconds, and then if it doesn't work, then we'll segue to chat.
Yeah, Dodgy, for now, why don't we ask everybody to just post their answers on chat?
Yeah, let's do that.
So to
Hi,
everybody,
how are you?
to everybody, could you just put your answer, the letter?
Yeah.
Put the
Okay,
letter
so,
in the chat box.
Yes, please. So just
And
type
I will track it.
Oh, here we go. Awesome. Okay, did the poll actually show up on your screens?
Yes, it did.
Okay, good. Okay, are we ready to look at the results? Awesome. Okay, so 59% believe it's the World Health Organization that was hacked. 3% Red Cross, 18%. Is that 18 or 16%? 16% United Nations and 22% World Bank. Thank you very much, Malu. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay. So hackers usually have antisocial behavior or criminal minds. So what entity will they attack during a pandemic? The World Health Organization. Gilead Sciences, the company that announced that they have developed remdesivir, an antiviral drug that allegedly reduces the risk of death for severely sick patients by an astounding 62%. Those two entities were targeted by the hackers. The Prime Minister of Australia even announced that their public and private sectors were repeatedly being attacked by hackers. I personally witnessed a Zoom graduation ceremony that was hijacked, and it was not a pretty sight. So for Zoom users, I encourage you, please make sure that you use the waiting room feature in Zoom. The usual suspects, China, Russia, and Iran. Then there is Zoom hijacking, ransomware, phishing via email, even revenge porn, distributed denial of service attacks or DDoS attacks, and website defacing, among many other cybercrimes. More concerning, of course, and it becomes very personal, is hacking of credit cards and bank accounts. My personal friend's bank account was actually hacked. We just had a Zoom call last week, and she told us how her bank account went from several $1,000s to just something less than 100. Be careful with fake emails, right, that ask you to update your online banking password. So you get an email, it looks like it's coming from your bank, it has the logo of the bank, and then it's asking you to click on a link because your account may be compromised or whatever message, right? And then it will say, please click on this to reset your password. Do not, okay? Make sure that you check with your bank first, or better yet, you can actually look at the, you know, that there's a to and from, right? At the very top of the email, you click on the to, on the from, and then it will actually tell you the real email address where that email is came from. Okay. Thank you, Malu. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Financial impact. So let's look at the impact of this pandemic on the educational system's financials. There was this unforeseen expense to families who suddenly had to fly back their family member, right? Some universities even took it upon themselves to pay for the return of their students, meaning their plane fare. It also meant a big slice of their revenue from dorms and food service just went out the window. Zero revenue, right? Again, the cost of IT equipment for both students and teachers, right, at the personal level. Then there's this, the school infrastructure, ISP bandwidth, VPN connectivity, Zoom licenses, among others. Okay. And the university I work for, we immediately doubled our ISP bandwidth and increased our VPN connections. Let's move on to the next slide, please, Malu. Thank you. And of course, challenges with health and safety. Well, being at home for the weekend is always nice, but over 100 days of like that, from mid-March, we have now been locked down for over 4 months. We are already past mid-year, and August is just around the corner. I'm already conditioning myself that I will celebrate Christmas in a lockdown situation. There are concerns in the US that the fall and winter seasons will usher the second wave of this pandemic, if we're not there already. There is constant concern around physical health. I just got news that a friend of mine who's also a UP graduate, that her father-in-law just passed away from complications brought about by COVID-19. This pandemic will likely cause a rise in cases of depression, severe anxiety, and other mental health issues. Boredom is something that we are all facing. For some, like myself, boredom is a fertile ground for creativity, but for others, it is not so. And finally, keeping a regular routine. One of our town hall meetings, we emphasize this to our team members, right? Maintain a routine, right? People who regularly went to school or office, all of a sudden are finding themselves with less structure and so much quote unquote free time. Well, that is not necessarily a good thing, especially for students who are not so keen on time management. Okay, moving on to practical solutions, but before we go there, let's take another quick poll. All right, next slide, please. Yes. So here, as I pointed out, I will talk on some possible practical solutions from involving three key stakeholders: the government, family, and educational institutions. But before we move to that, let's just take another poll. Hello? Okay. So building a nationwide fiber optic infrastructure requires huge investments and will take a significant amount of time and effort. So what do you think is a quicker way to provide high-speed internet access in remote areas? So first, dial-up modems. Second, satellite. Third, copper wire. Fourth, long-distance point-to-point Wi-Fi. Let's go. Malu, are we ready to pull up the results? Okay. Dial-up modems, 11%. Satellite, 50%. Copper wire, 3%. 36%. Long distance point-to-point Wi-Fi. Excellent. Thank you very much for your responses. Okay, next slide, please. If there is one lesson that nations can learn from this pandemic, or have learned already, is this: IT infrastructure is as critical as roads and bridges. Fiber optic infrastructure takes a lot of time, effort, and capital to build. It will also be difficult to secure approvals to dig the ground and run fiber. Well, satellite-based internet connection is a quick way to provide internet connectivity in remote places. Now, of course, let's not forget, with 74 million smartphone users, based on the previous slide, there's there's quite a good presence of 4G LTE connection. I assume that people can use as hotspots and connect their laptop. Some satellite-based systems require geostationary satellites, and today the most advanced geostationary satellite can actually give a downstream bandwidth of 500 megabits per second. I also discussed, or we have also an option there in our poll called long distance point-to-point Wi-Fi. I was just telling Ricky earlier that I actually had a project where we installed point-to-point 2.4 gigahertz wireless spread spectrum technology with frequency hopping. And we connected the port of Manila to our facility in Calamba, Laguna. Of course, you have to deal with, licensing of the frequency, etc., right? And the possibility of stepping over some frequencies that, that companies might not be too happy with you. But competition has been known to drive down costs. That means it might be worth opening or incentivizing multiple telecom providers. Or is it worth bringing this challenge to our ASEAN partners so that there is concerted effort amongst member nations to solve this infrastructure issue? I'm sure they share the same challenges that we're facing. Or, approaching US aid, is that an option? Right. Just a very interesting note in terms of as we are talking about infrastructure. Google actually launched a company called Loon LLC. Loon for an extract from balloon. And what they did was they launched balloons to carry internet signals. So that from a location they would beam the signals to the balloon, and the transmission would be from one balloon to another until it reaches the ISP. A very creative solution, which might work for other countries, but then given that we have so many storms in the Philippines, that balloon might end up in another island. Okay, but just an interesting and creative solution coming from Google. Okay, next slide, please. So how about for the families? As you don't see the students in person, what is the best way to reach out to them? Well, you keep the communication lines open and you encourage them to ask questions. This means setting up a regular day or time for students to ask questions, either via Zoom, Google Hangouts, email, or through some instant messaging platform. Encourage parents and students to reach out to, students to reach out to the university for financial assistance or even counseling. Remember, their need may be emotional support. Do not underestimate the impact of this lockdown to the mental state of people. For parents with children who are still studying, teach the children how to manage time. This is a very important skill that will help them in life. Well, don't just let them lock themselves in their rooms and play video games the whole day. Verizon, which is one of the largest telecom companies in the US, reported an uptick of 75% increase in internet traffic relating to video games during this pandemic. 75% increase. Okay. What else? Encourage the family to maintain a routine. Very helpful to create some form of normalcy and order. Wake up at this time, you make your coffee, you look at your emails, you join Zoom calls, right? Then you wrap it up, you relax after the day, get some exercise, etc. Take time to interact as a family, support one another, plan together, listen to each other, and address any situation that may be bothering any member. On the upside, there's great time to motivate yourself or your children to learn new skills. Learn a new language, learn how to cook, play the piano, write a song, write a book, paint, draw, etc. Well, I myself completed my second book, AI Hack 2, Reimagine the Future, during this pandemic or this lockdown period. I also enrolled my 22-year-old daughter in an online program management or project management course offered by Cornell University. So, you know, we're trying to keep ourselves busy. Next slide, please. So, practical solutions for educational institutions. And I would like to pause here and highlight that I encourage, and I'm sure we're already working on it, especially my beloved College of Engineering, to build and continuously build digital content. I talked about I'm currently doing a webinar series for a large university here in the West Coast. And they're 100% online. Right? Another university I heard has like 30,000 online students. Consider investing in professional grade equipment, professional microphone, video equipment, etc. Explore how to leverage YouTube as a repository of your training or course materials, of course, with access controls and all that. Even MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, uses YouTube as their platform for video training materials. So don't underestimate YouTube. It's a very powerful tool. Considering some students in the rural areas may have limited internet connectivity, we may need to produce pure audio content as well. You know, MP3 for easy downloading. Transcription of lessons in PDF format, of course, will help. If, say, there are 3 or 4 teachers teaching the same class, avoid, of course, creating duplicate content. I think that's a no-brainer. Instead, divide the task. Choose the best speaker amongst yourselves and let him or her host the lessons. Then, of course, everyone assists in the content. And of course, in order for the lessons to remain relevant, continuous research and development or updating of content is essential. And I strongly recommend even arranging for online interviews with industry practitioners related to the subject that is being taught. And we can start with the people that we know, our very own UP graduates around the world. Right? This will work really well with people in the US, as you can interview them at a time when they're already done with work. Of course, the morning in Manila is our evening here in the US. And in fact, this pandemic is leveling the playing field. This means that you can offer your training courses to anyone, anywhere in this world. Let us explore the global market. Online courses are a growing trend, not only in the US, but around the world. We have online universities, as I pointed out, 100% online here in the US, with tens of thousands of enrollees. And the beauty of that is once you build your digital content, the next step, you've got your content already, and it stays there, right? Can be accessed anytime, anywhere, from anywhere. Of course, the next step is to market it to the world. Right? Might be prudent to actually work with our UP marketing graduates. Next slide, please. By the way, we have a poll. And this should be an easy one. In the global arena, name one competitive advantage of Filipinos. Fashion, food, music, English. Let's go. Awesome. Okay, fashion, 9%. Oh, wait, no, 0. Food, 6%. Music, 3%. English, 91%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Malu. Our biggest competitive advantage is this: our mastery of the English language. Our digital content is very marketable. Why? Our manner of speaking can be easily understood by many different races. We must use that to our advantage in the global market. If you have a copy of any of my 2 books, look at the back cover. You will see an endorsement from a chairman of a British business intelligence company. Okay. Now, some background there. I used to work for a global British company called P&O Ports, a port and shipping company listed in the London Stock Exchange. I worked with graduates from Cambridge and Oxford. One colleague once said to me that my mastery of the English language is better than most Englishmen. And it's not just me. I would say all UP students fall into that category. Okay? So our biggest competitive advantage in the global arena, and please note, that is the arena where I am working in. Our biggest advantage, our mastery of the English language. Let's move on, please. Thank you, Malu. Student success. Within the ranks of the most prestigious universities in the US, one metric that we use is called student success. This means that if a student is struggling to pass a class or worse, a year level, we take that very seriously. We find ways on how to help the student succeed and eventually graduate. Of course, there are factors that are way beyond our control. But our belief is this: parents send children to school with hopes that they will succeed in life. And we in the academy must help our parents, must help those parents to achieve their objectives. How do we do that? We ask this question: how can we help the least privileged amongst our students? How can we help those who are struggling? Right? So in delivery of training, we have to think about that. We have to design our training method with the least privileged student in mind. How? Well, if we know that, you know, Zoom calls would be very difficult for some of our students, we design our training in such a way it's delivered in a synchronous manner. Meaning, we don't require them to be in Zoom calls the whole day. We provide course materials that they can download and listen to or view offline. Then they can download the exercises or exams. Oh, exams? How about exams? Well, assume that the students will text or email each other for the answers. So no point in fooling ourselves. They will actually call each other and say, what's the answer to this? So we need to design our exams using what we call way back in the 80s, open books, right? They can Google the answer, they can call each other and ask for the answer. But so where should we focus on? So we focus on analysis. We teach the students to analyze, not just copy and paste. I have a friend who teaches in New York City, and he said that students today will just Google and copy the entire question from the quiz, right? And just type it in Google search, and the first three hits, right? What they will do is just look at it, copy and paste, and then when you read it, it doesn't make sense. So we have to teach young people how to analyze. There is so much data that's already available. What is severely lacking today is analytical skills. People have difficulty distinguishing truth from hoax, facts from made up stories. With digital content, let's go back to digital content. With digital content being made available, it is not necessary that a teacher teaches the same lesson 4 to 5 times a week. Faculty can now focus on mentoring the students. As I mentioned in another slide, we have to set some routine for our students. Also teach them the value of time management. And of course, you can also take time to discuss career planning with them or arrange with companies for internships.
Stop opening the light and leaving it on. When you go, close the light.
Thank you. Can we move on to the poll, Malu? Thank you. Okay, so I mentioned internships. So here is a quick poll. Do we believe internships are actually valuable to both students and companies? Or it's just a waste of time?
Yeah, I am on Zoom.
Okay, 94% believe it's a yes. No one believes that it's not valuable, and 6% not sure. Okay, thank you very much, Malu. So I found out that one of the strengths of the youth educational system is their nationwide internship program. As early as 2nd or 3rd year in college, students are encouraged to work as interns in large companies. My 2 sons actually were interns, and right immediately after graduation, they landed in good jobs. In fact, my 2nd son got his offer when he was still in 3rd year to work for KPMG. So while they may be paid minimum wage, whatever work they do is counted as professional experience, so that then when they go out after college, they can prepare their resume and say, I worked for this company and that. And in fact, I hire people, so I look at that too. And if I don't consider one as a fresh graduate, because I know that there's an internship program in the US, and I look at the internships. In fact, in the university that I work for, we in fact have what we call student workers, and we give them real work. Okay, so we have projects and we involve them so that they have real insights on what is happening in the workplace. Okay, let's move on to the next, please. Time check. So one of the biggest challenges for both student and faculty is IT equipment. I've seen several emails regarding fundraising for IT equipment, like the one from the United UP Engineering Community Against COVID-19. Congratulations. Thank you for doing that. It will be worth exploring if large companies like IBM or Dell can provide some equipment leasing options, right? That can be paid monthly. And of course, big discounts can be negotiated for large volume transactions. Fundraising campaigns can be done in cooperation with, say, top entertainers. My songwriter friends, Ryan Cayabyab and Trina Belamide, recently put together what is called Bayanihan Musikahan that generated, listen to this, 122 million pesos, right? From various countries. Their platform, Facebook. UP may also launch, like adopt a student program where a donor may be matched with an anonymized student to say, help the student pay for the equipment lease arranged by the university. The donor will only know that he or she is helping, say, a third-year computer engineering student. That's all that the donor will know. Right. By the way, kudos also to the Kaagapay sa Pag-aaral program organizers. I'm glad that we're all trying to pool our resources together to help our students who are the future of our nation. Next slide, please. I think we have a poll. Okay. Well, here's a question that has been lingering in my mind for some time now. Should UP build alliances with other universities? Awesome, fantastic. 91% believe, yes, let's do that. 3%, no. 6%, not sure. Okay, thank you very much. We hear people say there is strength in numbers. Next slide, please. Malu, thank you. Here is the secret sauce. Top universities in the US maintain strong alliances. Okay, without mentioning the university I work for. We talk to Harvard, we talk to Cornell and other universities on a regular basis. We have a question on an IT vendor, we call Harvard. Have you worked with this vendor before? Etc. We have leadership training programs that are put together by Ivy League schools and attended by people from these prestigious universities. We help each other. We even share data center space. And we even have collaboration with other universities for research network. And with strong alliances with other universities in the Philippines, we can lobby for better IT infrastructure or perhaps government subsidy. UP, to my mind, should in fact lead the way in building such alliances with other universities if we haven't already done so. We know this for a fact. If there is one educational institution that can make a difference in the Philippines and even in the world, it is UP. UP is positioned to lead the alliance with other universities. Again, if we haven't already done it. So, finally, where do we go from here? Next slide, please. Where do we go from here? Let me give you some insights on the current trends and some emerging technologies, and I'll wrap this presentation with that and a subsequent slide. Next slide, please, Malu. Universities and businesses in the US and around the world are now over the denial stage. We have opened our eyes and we are embracing this new normal. Sure, we still have people here who don't want to wear masks in the name of freedom, right? But that's another story. Realizing that this might not even be the last pandemic that we will see, a lot of US companies and universities will continue telework indefinitely. My second son, who works for KPMG New York, got an approval to actually move to LA. We are seeing an exodus of people moving from New York City to suburbs in Connecticut and New Jersey. A lot of companies and countries have now acknowledged the importance of IT infrastructure for them to survive the future. Some universities have actually launched a program called Go Local. This means you can stay, if you're a student, you can stay where you are. If you are near one of the study away sites, you can opt to attend classes in that nearby location. This means that universities will continue to provide mixed modal instructions, remote instructions or in person. Some universities have already set their rules for students attending classes in person, like, allow only 20% of the seating capacity in a classroom, or we'll take your body temperature, right? Or we'll ask you to click on a link and answer a few questions that will tell us if we will let you in or not, okay? And there are, publicized protocols for reporting suspected COVID-19 infection. Some universities have even gone to a point of using or developing class reservation system to pre-book classrooms. Some schools, I heard, are using rolling carts with audio and video equipment for Zoom sessions for their classrooms. And of course, you can also book for that cart together with the room. A number of universities, including Oxford and Johns Hopkins University, are already working on developing a mobile app for contact tracing. That means that you will get a text when somebody who was in close proximity to you reported that he or she is infected with coronavirus. The text will even advise you to get tested for COVID-19 and do self-quarantine. Just a side note, Cisco came up with a product called DNS Spaces. So, it has a graphical representation. Yeah, you have a map of your whatever campus or building, and it will actually tell you how many people are there in the building. And it can even send an alert to the building administrator and say, okay, your threshold is 100 people in this building. You're already at 98, right? So you will only be allowed to have 2 more people go in. There's also an ongoing redefinition of roles and responsibilities of faculty members. There's more focus now on creating, as I said, digital content for class materials and focus on mentoring. I really hope that UP will also ramp up on building digital content, as I said, if we are not doing that already. There's now focus on what is called learning analytics. So what is learning analytics? So systems that are intelligent enough to actually determine if the student watched the video or not, or if the student actually terminated the video right in the middle, right? And correlate that with the result of his or her exam. Oh, the reason why you failed this exam is because you did not even finish the video. Right, so those are some of the ongoing trends. I want to repeat what I said earlier, that this pandemic is creating a leveling of the playing field. And if we do this right, we can actually create a global university based on digital content. Again, there are many universities in the US that have 100% online classes, as I mentioned, right? So what does the future of education look like? Here are some emerging technologies that will likely be incorporated in the future. Automation and AI. Learning systems that are AI enabled, which means that the learning system will help a student succeed by helping him or her with daily schedule of studying, reviewing homework, giving sample exams, playing back video if the student doesn't pass the sample exam, and even interacting with the student to address any question that the student may have. Robotics and AI are now being taught in high schools in the US. How do I know? Well, I actually delivered a lecture on AI in one magnet school here in California, and personally talked to a faculty member who teaches robotics and AI to high school students. Animation will form a big part, not only in entertainment, but also in education. Training materials of the future will not be static PowerPoint slides like the one I have now. Teaching will be done with animation, as well as recorded videos with human teachers. I'd like to also highlight here virtual reality. And we believe that VR, in the people in the technology space, we believe that VR, virtual reality, will also play a big part in the education of the future. There's this 2016 article released by Smithsonian Magazine titled, "How Can Schools Use Virtual Reality?" Remember, 2016, 4 years ago. And it talked about how students will be able to virtually visit the Buckingham Palace, Machu Picchu, or even the Great Barrier Reef using Google's VR solution. By the way, I'm not sure if UP has considered reaching out to partner with Google to use their suite of products for the education sector. Maybe you can educate me on, tell me what's bubbling up when we do our Q&A. In the coming years, surgery will be taught using virtual reality equipment. Civil engineering and structural engineering, electrical and electronics engineering, and all other types of engineering, chemistry, quantum physics, medicine, nursing, physical therapy, and even social work and sports will likely use virtual reality and augmented reality technologies. Microsoft and Google are actually racing in this space. I'd like you to check out a YouTube video. If you have a pen and paper, write this down, right? Go to YouTube and type this, Microsoft Azure, A-Z-U-R-E, AI, to see the current state of augmented reality and hologram technologies that the giant tech companies like Microsoft is building, are building. Okay. Next slide, please. So in summary, this pandemic is a huge challenge to the world. But for some, it is truly an opportune time. Let me end with a quote from my latest book, AI Hacked 2, Reimagine the Future. Throughout the history of mankind, success favored the ones who were ahead of their time. The thought leaders, the visionaries, the pioneers, the explorers, the founders, the inventors, the originals, the prime movers, the change agents, the early adopters. They who had the unique ability to reimagine the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doji. That was very, very interesting. I think what impressed me the most about your presentation is, okay, you talked about the challenges because that is very important. But I like the way you focused on the possible solutions, specifically in the areas of government, educational institutions, and family. Very, very comprehensive. We have time for a few questions, and several questions have already come in. Let me just try to cover as many as we can, right?
Sure.
You talked about education institutions. How do we prepare the faculty to handle this new normal? Especially because you talked about they also have to handle the emotional aspects. How do you prepare? How can we prepare the faculty for this one?
Yeah. So there are two key points to that question, Jo Marie, and many thanks. That's a very important question. The first is we all have to get over the denial stage. That's really important, right? Because to this day, there are still people who do not believe that, you know, the pandemic is real, right? And so if we're in that denial stage, we will not prepare. Why? Because we're thinking that this will just go away, right? Magically. So that's the first one. The second is to look at the new normal and actually equip and start equipping our faculty. How do we do that? Number one, we said that we need to equip them with the right tools. Number one is video and audio equipment. We have to train them on how to build their digital content. Some people, it will just be so easy for them, like the back of their hand. But for some people, it will be a challenge, right? They don't even want to face the camera. They panic when there's a camera in front of them, etc. So that has to be also taught to some teachers. Also, the other side of this is helping them to help other people. Looking at the emotional side of this pandemic, right? Helping them how to coach, how to counsel students, because they will be the first point of contact. They will be the ones who will actually see if there are signs of depression coming from that student. Right? And it's very important that they catch it and say, I think you need to see our counselor, right? Or you're having problems, I can see that you're very sad, and that you're failing your grades because you're not doing your homework, right? So there's that angle of managing and counseling that we need to teach our professors as well.
Yep, and you're so right. The challenge, though, is that a lot of these teachers don't have that innate skill at this point in time, right?
Yes.
So I think that's they need to find ways to get that kind of help and support. And pardon me if I focus on the teachers in terms of questions. The bulk of our listeners are from the faculty and the academe, right? The question that came in is creation of digital learning materials, like with animation or even virtual reality, I wish. Maybe beyond the purview of teachers who are subject matter experts, but not IT creative. The question also is, you talked about there's a lot of digital content already out there. How can the faculty take advantage of that so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Okay. Yeah. So availing of existing digital content, that's a bit contentious, Jo Marie. because some may
Exactly.
be subject to intellectual property.
Right.
That's why I actually encourage UP to build their own digital content.
Yes,
Uh,
but
I'm sorry.
the academic calendar will start, the new school year will start on the 10th of September. So that doesn't really give them much leeway. But is an alliance with another university in the United States, for example, possible in this limited time so that some digital content can be made available within that short window?
That's you know, that can be explored. Yes, right. I mentioned some universities here which are doing 100% digital or online training, right?
Right.
But the more important thing is this, Jo Marie. There's no better time to actually start building the digital content than now.
Yes.
We have to start building that, right? Instead of, I do understand that there's very little time, but that will always be the case, right? But if we start building the digital content now, several months from now, we will have so much digital content, right? Just think about that. And again, when I talked about MIT, I actually took a program in MIT, right? And most of the materials were actually YouTube videos. I was like, what?
Yeah. You're so right. And sometimes really it's pressure that helps you get out of the denial stage, is what you mentioned earlier. We have a question from Jejo Bongato, Philippine Science High School. For schools with high mixed demographics, like Science High School, how could we ensure fair and equitable learning experiences for our learners? For example, our school will be sending print materials via mail for students with challenges to technology access. So I think that's a good way to bridge that gap. But I also intend to make digital content based on printed content for the students who have access to educational technologies. I'm afraid to create digital content with the fear of unintentionally putting the students without technology access to at a disadvantage. What can you say about that?
That's a very, very good point. And that came from Jojo, right?
Jejo Bongat.
Yes, thank you very much for raising that. Remember, I mentioned something about the plan for the least privileged student, right? It's easy for us to build digital content and easily forget that there's somebody out there who may not even have access, right? Or may have difficulty getting into YouTube and spending an hour, right, watching a video. So what we need to do, as pointed out, is you need to have materials in PDF format, for example, as transcripts of that lecture, you know, maybe do something that will be easily, or it will be a lightweight download, like an MP3. Right?
So,
and more importantly, of course, you know, when you do your MP3s, you have to remember that there's a limit on attachments, right, to email. So just be cognizant of that when you do your MP3s.
well, there is Google Drive or Dropbox that can help you with some of those limitations. What are the new KPIs that you use to gauge learning progress in a remote learning setup?
Wow.
Sorry, I love the questions that have come in, but I'm not sure if you have all the answers, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
You know, the classic metric is of course, you know, you pass or you fail the exam. The focus right now is actually changing, right? We are revisiting that paradigm of, well, if you did not pass this, you know, or I gave you, you know, multiple choice and you got 75% or, you know, 60%, then you flunk. The paradigm, the shift in the paradigm right now is this. We realize that there's so much content already in the internet and it's easy to get the data. The focus right now is analysis. We have to teach our students how to analyze data. They can, as I mentioned, they can Google it, they can type it, and they will have 50 hits. They can get the information. The question is, what information is useful for this topic? Right? And that's a different way of creating your quizzes and your exams. Right? And it will not be where, I'm not saying that multiple choice will not be relevant anymore. You can certainly use that. Right? But more importantly, you pose the question in such a way that you solicit analysis from the student. And to me, that's an even more important metric, that the person actually was able to understand the material so that, right, he can write an analysis of this topic and not just say A, C, D.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Yep. No, Doji, I mean, if I were just to summarize what you've been saying for the last hour, it could be government, education institutions, or family, but really, if the major change happens with the educational institution, especially redefining the role of the faculty and taking advantage of learning analytics and taking advantage of what's out there in the internet, we will be able to adapt and adjust to it. But what you just said, honestly, I think we should actually have a poll question that says, would you like to have a part 2 of this webinar? Because it's been very interesting, and I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. We've actually gone over time. So Doji, thank you very much for that wonderful insight.
Thank you
I'd just like to go to the last portion of our webinar. One of our partners in this webinar is the UP Engineering Research and Development Foundation Incorporated, or ERDFI. And one of their key initiatives is the Professorial Chair Program. To help us understand more about this, please welcome its Executive Director, Mr. Tito Aliga. Tito?
Thank you very much, Jones. And again, good morning to everybody in the Philippines and parts of the world. And thank you very much, Doji, for gracing this event, as well as having this very important highlight. And we would like to, I don't know if our Dean is here, but Dean Ferdi is there. So this highlight of this program is Doji signing a deed of donation for the professorial chair called Elzar Simon, DIEOR, Golden Jubilee Professorial Chair in Artificial Intelligence. The college uses these professorial chair awards as incentive for our faculty to go to do deep research beyond their teaching routines. So we are trying to raise interest among our alumni and friends to help us support this big effort. Dean Ferdi had given us a menu that shows we need about 180 professorial chairs for about 270 faculty in engineering. About 200 of them are eligible because they are assistant professors and are. Unfortunately, at this moment, we have only about 153 chairs that are available. So we have a long way to go. But again, with people like Doji, and hopefully some other people in the audience now, they will think of helping us in this program. So before the next part of this program then, to tell us more about what it's all about, to acknowledge this donation is our Dean, Professor Ferdinand Manegdeg. Dean?
Thank you, Tito. And thank you to Jomari and Malu, our distinguished guest, Doji Simon, IE 85 and Vice President for Information Technology of New York University, Ricky and IE alumni, UP College of Engineering alumni, UP RDFI and UPIEAA, and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant evening in the US and morning in Australia and here. I hope and pray that everybody, whatever you are in the best of health. Dodi talk about education and artificial intelligence, a subject that is critical and vital in our engineering fields. This seminar does not only mark an important milestone, but it is also a historic one. This is the first virtual international webinar being conducted. The current format may not be the most ideal, but we are grateful that this technology provides us the means to be together to share your expertise with us. The UP College of Engineering is celebrating its 110th founding anniversary, and webinars are one of the highlights. The college has produced numerous luminaries in the academe, industry, and public service, both in local and international settings. In spite of the current difficulties, each one of you has been coming back to help the college. The Elzar Simon Department of Industrial Engineering Operation Research Golden Jubilee Professorial Chair in Artificial Intelligence being donated is even a greater highlight as it helps the faculty members of the Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research. Last year, all of our 147 applicants were provided with professorial chairs. However, there are 204 qualified, and this Elzar Simon Department of Industrial Engineering and Operation Research Golden Jubilee Professorial Chair in Artificial Intelligence is a tremendous help to fill the demand. Isang mataimtim na pagbati kay Doji at sa mga alumni ng Kolehiyo ng Inhenyeriya. Kailangan ka ng bayan mo, ang bayang Pilipinas at ang sambayanang Pilipino. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Salamat po.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dean. The next part of the program is the virtual signing of the deed of donation. The signatories being Doji as the donor and Ferds de la Cruz, the president of UPRDFI, as the donee. In front of them, I think they're holding pieces of paper. So we would just like to see you sign. Okay, the signing starts now. Or that's signed, Ferds?
It's signed already.
Doji?
Done.
Done.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ferds and Doji. And of course, Dean Ferdi is one of the witnesses, so I'm sure he has already also done the signing already. The next part of our program, so thank you very much, gentlemen. The next part of the program is a brief message from our donor. Doji?
Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat din, Dean Ferdinand Manigdeg. My special thanks to my colleagues in the UP Industrial Engineering and Operations Research Department. I certainly am a proud product of that UP educational system. And I'm deeply delighted to be able to give back in my own little way to the university that so well nurtured me to become what I am today. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Doji.
Maraming salamat, Dodi.
Salamat din po.
To close this signing event, of course, Jo Marie and Ricky will close it later, the formal event. But the signing event, we would like to ask our UPRDFI President Ferds de la Cruz to give us a few remarks. Incidentally, this is the first chair in his young term as President of UPRDFI. Thank you very much, Doji. Ferds, your turn.
Thank you, Tito. Thank you and congratulations to UPIEAA and DIEOR for the great webinar this morning. Kudos, President Ricky Peña, my batchmate. We look forward to more. On behalf of the UP Engineering R&D Foundation, I'd like to congratulate Doji for the excellent and engaging talk earlier. Your thoughts on the topic are fresh pragmatic, and very timely. We can't thank you enough for your generous and immediate contribution to the Foundation's call for more professorial chair awards for the college. Your chair focus on artificial intelligence is a very appropriate and aligned one to how we are pivoting the foundation to focus on helping digitalize UP engineering to produce better engineers. Together with Dean Ferdy Manigdeg and UPAE President General Almilda Cruz, we are working on establishing a high-speed computer cluster for the exclusive use of the college. I believe exposing many more faculty members and students to high-performance computing to produce more work using computational analysis will build better engineers ready to participate in Industry 4.0. We are looking at how remote labs can be realized to augment the planned blended approach. At the most urgent level, the Foundation is helping the college and the UP system to secure laptops and internet connectivity to our students needing them. Doji, your PCA chair is a wonderful gift and blessing in sync with the times. Thank you once again, and may you inspire our audience and many more to follow your good example. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat, and congratulations again to Doji and to the organizers.
Thank you very much, Ferds. Thank you very much, Tito, Dean. I'd also like to acknowledge the head of the UP Department of IE and Operations Research, Eric Laguno, for joining us. At this point, let's save this first webinar for posterity, and I see Dante Briones in his car. Could you please all turn on your cameras so that we could have a group picture? Here's an opportunity for everybody to see everybody else. I see Chicho, I see June, Eric. I'll give you 10 more seconds to turn on your cameras for those who have not yet turned on their cameras. Okay, Mr. Peña, go ahead. Ricky, you're muted, so, okay. 3, 2, 1.
All right, there are two screens, so I will take the second screen now. So just keep on smiling. One last. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. Again, thank you very much, Doji, not only for the talk that you gave us today, but also for the professorial chair in artificial intelligence grant. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this webinar. Please like the official page of the UPIE Alumni Association on Facebook so that you can be updated about our forthcoming events. Also, if you would like to support the UPIEAA and its programs, we appreciate any donations that you can share. The UPIEAA bank account number is shown on the screen right now. Additional reminder, please click on the link in the chat box so that you can fill up the evaluation form. Those who want to receive a certificate of attendance, please complete this and we will email the certificate to you. Again, thank you for participating in today's event. This is John Marie Mercado. It's been my pleasure being your host for today. Looking forward to see you in the next webinar. Have a pleasant day and stay safe. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.